Good evening, good people. Another Boss Conversations with Janeah, where we're having conversations that matter. Tonight, I'm going to be talking to one of my bosses. He's been tapping in with me ever since I started this process, this journey. I'm happy to have him on. We're going to talk about his profession, his he's a realtor. He sells properties, he sells homes and things. And so we're going to talk about his journey. So, you guys, we're going to welcome Mr. John Robinson.
Good evening,
Hey,
everyone.
hey, hey. How are you?
I'm well. How about yourself?
I am well. I am well.
Br-
On this breezy day.
Breezy it is, the Windy City.
The Windy City. I mean, how we gonna get 80 degrees one day and then it's like 40 with a windshield of 30 the next? Like it's crazy.
Only in Chicago, you can get all four seasons in one day.
One day, I'm trying to tell you, it's crazy. So I'm so happy to have you on. So I've had a realtor on before, but you're in different regions. So, right? Different energy and everybody's journey is different. So, we want to talk about your journey, and you are in the Midwest. So, um, let's talk about what's going on in the Midwest. So, are you ready to roll?
Let's roll.
Let's roll. So, tell the people your name and your business. What do you do, and what areas do you service?
So, good evening, everyone. My name is John Robinson. I am affiliated with Keller Williams Innovate. However, I do business as John Robinson Homes. I service pretty much the Illinois area. I know some people specialize in specific areas. I specialize in Illinois. It's my belief that if there's a property that someone out here may be interested in, it's my responsibility to find out all the information I can about that particular area, neighborhood, and/or region, and provide them the information. When consumers go to look for a realtor, a broker, we all go by different names, right? Um, it's
Right.
very important that when they start that conversation, they understand what they're looking for. Um, and it's simple. A realtor's should be expected to ease the fear and educate the people. And if somebody can't do that, they may not be the person for you. Sometimes we let friendship, familyship get in the way, but I, I'm okay with having the hard conversations because I rather hurt your feelings up front than something happen in the long run, and you're looking up upside my head like why you didn't tell me this early on. And so again, that comes with educating people. One of the number one things we hear in the industry today is, well, so and so said, or 20 years ago, and we have to overcome those conversations and have the real conversations about what's going on today. The market change every day, and so someone may say, well, my friend got an interest rate of 2% yesterday. Well, yesterday, that was yesterday. Today is a new day. Let's talk about what's going on today. And so those are
Okay.
important things. Those are important things that buyers and or sellers should be looking at when they're going to look for a realtor. Are you going to ease the fears that come along with buying, selling, or investing? Because trust me, there are fears. And are you going to provide the education that I need to make an informed decision?
Come on. Come on. I love that. I love that. And I love that you hit on the part about families and friends because I had a conversation with a family friend a while ago about hiring a family friend as a realtor, and the situation just didn't go well and just feeling kind of stuck. And I remember saying, you have to put you first, and and that's what you have to do, because at the end of the day, this is one of the biggest purchases that you can make in your life, buying a home. And you want to make it where it's a lasting and sustaining purchase. So that means that you definitely have to put yourself first through the whole process, because at the end of the day, what kind of home are you going, or property are you going to be stuck with? And you don't want to be stuck with something just because you didn't want to tell somebody that they weren't a good fit for you. So that is important that people focus on that, because that can
Absolutely.
be
And don't get me wrong. I have bought and sold with friends and family, but we have to have that hard conversation that it's business first, right? Um,
right.
I don't sell a product. I sell the problem that I solve. And so when you come to me saying, I want to buy or sell, that's the problem. It's not about the house that we're going to get. How are we going to solve this problem that you came to me with? Um, Giving you the information that you need. And I tell my clients all the time, don't make an immediate decision. Let's go look at the house, take some mental notes, write down some notes. And please, whatever you do, sleep on your decision. I know, some realtors may disagree with that and say, oh, well, houses are flying off the market left and right. Buying a house, like you said, is one of the biggest purchases that you will make. And it's not something that you want to get into wasting your time, your money, or your energy, only to back out a week later when you have an inspection, when it's something obvious that we see. And so, again, we got to have those upfront, honest conversations.
Mm, mm. So how long have you been in this field?
So, residential, I've been doing for a little over 2 years. I started out in 2009 on the commercial side. I'm sorry, 2007 on the commercial side. I worked for a full blown commercial brokerage. That's all I focused on was commercial, and that's a whole different animal than residential. Um, but it was there when I saw a need. Like when you see people going into the commercial side, and I'm just going to be open and honest with it. Um, our neighborhoods are going through regentrification because some of us sit back and allow that to happen. Those investors come in, buy up stuff, and then charge us top dollar for rent. Well, we need somebody again to educate us so that we can invest in ourselves, and that's why my business model is building generational wealth one closing at a time, because I'm educating the people. We're talking about the numbers and making sure that it makes sense. You're not going to come sit down with me and we have the conversation about what the interest rate is. I don't care what the interest rate is. I care about that monthly payment and can you afford it, because in 2 years if they foreclose on your house, the interest rate doesn't matter anyway. And when you go back to renting, you're paying 100% interest on somebody else's investment. So why not have the conversation early on, invest in yourself with an educated, informed decision?
Wow, that's good. That's a real good point about when you go back to rent and how much interest you are paying on someone else's property. Yeah, it's a big difference. I didn't even know that you were doing commercial. When you say that that's a whole different monster, um, is it hard for one to acquire commercial property?
No, it's not hard.
Is it harder than residential, or is it more steps? What's the difference? Is there one?
The language is different. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
Most of the time on the residential side, we start with a contract saying, here is the price, here is what we're trying to negotiate. On the residential side, everything starts with a letter of intent. I'm intending to purchase your property at this price. With commercial and mixed use, you get into vacancy rates, and it's the same thing on the residential side and multifamily. But people who are focusing on single family homes, just looking for something to have, a home to sit back and retire in. When you get into the investment, some of the language is the same. There are more stipulations on the commercial side, because it's not as easy to come in and reacquire that property as it is to foreclose on a single family home.
Mm, okay. Okay. All right. Good to know. Good to know. What made you want to get into this field?
That's a loaded question. Um, Most of the viewers may or may not know, I'm a Jamaican. Um, I hold several jobs, and all of them are of service, right? So real estate is in service. I work in law enforcement, serving people. But I also worked 13 years for the Chicago Public Schools. And yes, I did all three at one time. Um, and I found a passion for helping people. And so I got into the residential side because, again, that is my passion, helping people. From the commercial side, I see how, again, real estate is a very lucrative career path.
Mm-hmm.
On the commercial side, it's not a whole lot of, there's more of us renting than owning. And it's the same thing on the residential side. And so I find that it's easier for people to understand how to own their home and then have the conversation of how to own and run a business versus trying to jump out on a business when, yes, in home ownership, you can't pick up the phone at 3 in the morning and call a landlord. But also on the commercial side, and again, the language is totally different. When you start talking about your lease space and the triple net, where you're paying a portion of the insurance, taxes, and maintenance, and when an insurance claim happens, you're filing a claim with your insurance, but then also the property manager may be filing a claim with their insurance, but they're benefiting from both sides. How does that benefit you? Because as we know, as people, when insurance claims happen, premiums go up. Well, you thinking there's one claim, not even knowing that there's another claim on the back end, and so it hurts the tenants or leasees in the long run. And so I find that having these conversations about residential property and how mistakes can happen and let's how to avoid them. And so when you get ready to go into the commercial side, you're already knowing what the expectations are, what to expect, and how to overcome those roadblocks that may come along the way. Because once you
Mm.
sign that 10, 15-year lease, you're tied to it. I mean, you can get out of it, but they're going to want their money.
Right, right. And that's a long time, 10, 15 years. I'm talking about you better be committed to whatever it is you're doing or
You have
trying
to
to do. You
you have to
better
have
be
you
committed.
have to have the finances to back it. Because when it comes time
Yeah,
for proof of funds, what are you gonna do?
right, right. Man, yeah, definitely a whole nother monster, a whole nother monster. Wow. So how has the pandemic affected this market in the
Tremendously.
Midwest? What you've seen? What
It
has
has affected
changed?
it tremendously, and it depends on which side you're on. If you're on the buy side or the sell side. For sellers, it's great. There's homes that are selling for anywhere from 20, 50, 60,000 over list price. I have a
Mm,
I have a mutual friend who's a coach in
because
our
of these
office as well.
buyers wars.
Oh, these buyer wars are real. I had a client coach who's also a good friend of mine in our office, and we talked. She had a listing where she had 34 showings in one day. That's crazy. I mean, these houses are flying off the market because more people were at home and they found out that they can work from home. And so, is there a need to keep traveling? A lot of people live in the suburbs that will travel downtown. But once the pandemic hit, they were able to stay at home and realize, I can work from home. Maybe I don't need as much space. Let me downsize to something smaller. Kids may have moved out. Life happens. Let's just call it that. And rather, some students may have come back home from college and they needed more space. And so, yes, you can sell your home and then buy another home. You have the proceeds from your sale. So that puts you at a better advantage from most buyers who may or may not have a cushion where you can outbid them and say, I'll go 50,000 over list price, and you can provide a letter or your bank statement showing I have the funds to back what I'm saying. And so anybody that's looking to sell a house, and I mean you come 50,000 over what I'm asking for, you can have it. And so there's been a huge
Man,
shift. The market with the rise of interest rates, the market is starting to become a balanced market, um, which is good. Some people think the rise in interest rates is bad. It's not all bad. When we think about historically what interest rates has been, in 1985, a 13% interest rate was average. Just think about that, 13%. In 1996, a 7% interest rate was a fantastic rate. In 2005, a 6% rate was a bargain. Today's rates are somewhere between 5 and 7%. Um, and I don't want like giving false information. And so I will just say it's in that range because everyone's situation is totally different. Whatever your specific situation is, any lender will get with you, work with you, and talk about, the DTI, if you can go FHA versus conventional. And before I get too far ahead of myself, because we're going to go through those specific steps of the process to home ownership, and I'll touch on each one of those a little bit during the interview.
we could go ahead and get into that because I was gonna add. I literally the next question I was gonna ask you was, what, how would one be prepared as they come, and what would they'd expect as far as a process, for purchasing property? So yeah, we can go into it.
So sometime what we found is
Do you need
sometimes
the chart?
if you want to post it, that's fine, so the viewers can see it. But I kind of know what it is, but we can just flow from it. The first thing, sometimes what most people will do is reach out to a realtor and say, I want to go see these houses. I recommend people don't do that, because that sets you up for failure. If you go look at these three, $400,000 homes, see the one that you like, and then get with a lender and find out I'm only pre-approved for 200,000. You're going to be looking for houses in the 200,000 range, trying to compare it to those in the three or $400,000 range that you've seen. So again, it's
Mm,
all about educating people. Let's get with a lender, and pretty much every realtor has a lender partner that they work with. You're not required to use. You're allowed to shop around. You're not required to use. Let's just say if someone reached out to me, I have a preferred lender. You're not required to use my lender. My lender will tell you, shop around for rates, see what's best for you. Bring
right.
those printouts. Let's sit down and go through them line by line and have a conversation about what each one of those line items mean. Um, the pre-approval process. Some people believe it's this lofty, magical process. You need to be lucky, you need to be blessed, or all those things to get pre-approved. And it's not that. It can be complicated and it can be difficult. But the thing you have to ask yourself is this something that I want, and am I willing to put in the work? And so again, the pre-approval process. The first thing you do is make a decision to purchase a home. And how do you purchase that home? Most of us will probably need a mortgage lender. We don't have two, $300,000 sitting under our
Right.
bed to just say, let me go pay cash for this house. So along with that pre-approval process, they will run your credit score. There's three things that you need when you go for a pre-approval. You're going to need credit, income or savings, um, credit, and employment, which is the income and or the savings. Those are the three big ones. The first thing the lender is going to do is run your credit to make sure that you're credit qualified. Um, there's different programs. Most of the time, we hear FHA conventional. Those are the traditional ones, but you also have, VA, USDA, and they all have their own set of requirements. Um, you will hear a lot of buyers say that I'm getting outbidded because I'm an FHA buyer. FHA is not a bad program, contrary to what people may say.
Okay.
The difference in the programs, there's a wide range of difference, and I'm not a mortgage lender, but I'll just hit on the basic points. But the main difference between FHA and conventional is the credit score. A lender can get you approved for FHA loan, which is one down payment. It's 3.5% of the purchase price with a minimum credit score of 580. Some say they go as low as 565. You'll hear different things. I would say 580 is your buffer.
Okay.
Conventional conventional loans sometimes require a higher credit score. Also, with the credit score, it all depends on if you're trying to do down payment assistance or not. And you'll hear that oftentimes referred to as DPA. Each
Okay.
one of those programs have a DTI max. DTI is debt to income. And for anyone who wants to try to figure out what their debt to income is, take your gross income, multiply it by 0.45%, and that will give you your max loan amount. If there's any housing counseling agencies in the neighborhood, they will help with buyer education and DTI for free. Again, that's part of the education, providing resources. So any housing counseling agency, you can even, Google them online. Just go by. It's free of charge. Just to say, hey, let's pull a credit, see where I am. Maybe I'm ready to buy, maybe I'm not. But that's a perfect start. Um, Understanding
Okay.
credit is going to be the main thing, making sure that you have your down payment, and able to provide bank statements showing that you have the funds that you're going to need to close. And the mortgage lender will give you a breakdown, um, early on. It's required by law that once they run your credit and you're approved, within 3 days, they provide you with a statement pretty much showing all of the fees and what you will be required to bring cash to close. The very first one you get will probably be what we call inflated. And the reason for that, when you later on in the process, when you get ready to submit a contract, there are all type of ways where we can get creative with how you can get seller concessions, higher tax prorations. I would be careful about what I ask for in this market, but again, those are
Mm,
ways where we can kind of reduce some of the cash to close. Once you get a pre-approval in hand from that lender, they've checked your credit, they verified your job, your income, and or your savings, retirement. And now you're ready to go out and look for homes. Um, Again, you've already chosen your realtor. Let us assess your wants and needs. How many bedroom bathrooms do you want? How many do you need? Maybe there's not a specific house that has everything that you want in it. And so, what are some of those things that you can live without? Is there a particular neighborhood? Maybe there's someone looking for a home and wants to be in a particular
Right.
school district. And so, let's start narrowing down exactly what you're looking for. Um, it's kind of hard when someone calls and say, "I'm looking for a house in the city of Chicago." All right,
Right. So
you trying to be in Roseland, Bronzeville, you want to be in Logan Square, and understanding that each one of those communities are going to bring a different value and a different type of house, um,
right.
and also a different price point. And so again, that's why that pre-approval is so important. So we understand before we even go out. Let's not go out and set you up for failure. Like we're not going to the Maserati dealer, and we got Toyota Avalon money. We need to stick
Come
within our.
on.
But also having that conversation, yes, there are some lenders out here, and that's why most realtors would like to work with their preferred lender. What we're finding now, especially in this market with houses just flying off the market, you have some lenders that'll call and say, "Hey, Janeah, I need a pre-approval letter," and you'll say, "Okay, here you go." Well, once the process starts, that's a waste of everyone's time, including the buyer, because when it comes time to get a clear to close, you can't get one because the buyer was never approved from the get go,
From the bank,
and
from the
that's
actual mortgage company.
absolutely. But there are some lenders who, if you call them right now, they'll just say, "Okay, I know you got a job. Yeah, but did you review their credit? You might make $100,000 a year, but if you got $150,000 in debt, we got a problem. What type of house can you afford?"
Right.
So again,
Right.
it's important to early on have those conversations. Um, Within the pre-approval, you're gonna know what your interest rate is. Like I say, interest rates change pretty much daily. Uh, the interest rate is based on the risk that the bank is taking. So if you have a higher credit score, you're probably going to get a lower interest rate. That's why I said those rates will fluctuate and they change on a daily basis. But that's not what's most important. Let's not focus so much on the interest rate. Are you approved? And again, the real thing, the real number to focus on is that mortgage payment, and make sure that you can comfortably afford that and understand that life happens to the best of us. Do I have a cushion that if I need to be off work for
Right.
1, 2 months or whatever, I can still afford my bills and I'm not living
Okay.
paycheck to paycheck trying to pay this mortgage? And so, again, those are the tough conversations that some people don't want to have. They're easy for me to have because it's real that we have them up front before you find yourself in a situation saying, why didn't I do X, Y, and Z beforehand? You know,
Mhm.
buying a home, I was sharing with a young lady earlier. You probably saw on Facebook that I had a closing earlier. And through the process, she
Mhm.
kept saying, I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I'm ready. Buying a home should be a logical experience and not an emotional one. Why do I say that? Logic will make you think, emotions will make you act. And so, logically, is it important for you to say, "I have a home," or does it make sense for you to go out and get a home with a $3,000 mortgage and then 6 months down the line, you don't have that home anymore? We don't have to keep up with the Joneses.
Right.
Let's be realistic about what we can afford and keep you in your home for 30 years or however long you plan to keep it, but it's yours.
And your comfort, as well, like a single woman, you might not need a 5-bedroom home. You
Absolutely.
can really find a little 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, nice little smaller home that you could just really deck out and really be comfortable and not living above your means. But a lot of people don't even rationalize the fact that you could get a smaller home and have better interior decorating in it. You know what I'm saying? Like that little extra money that you were going to spend instead of getting a 2-story, 3-bedroom, 3-car garage and all of that, you can totally redo a smaller home and be living within your means. Just upgrade all the appliances and all the little stuff in there and make it feel really jazzy, your space, but not above your means.
And even with that, Delayed doesn't mean denied. So you may want this 5 bedroom, four
Right.
bathroom. So let's get this 2 bedroom, one bath right now. Like you said, let's deck it out, make it what we want it to be. The good thing about home ownership, most of the stuff that you do to a house, upgrading it, making it your own, you will get what we call a ROI. And in real estate, there's a whole lot of
Yes.
return on your investment. And so again, those
Yes.
appliances will add value. Changing some of those light fixtures will add value. And so you may have to stay in this house a year or
Painting
two,
the
add
outside
value.
of the house.
Yeah, just little things. Add some little, some little cute trees or something. Add some curb appeal to it. And you never know. In 2 years, you may be able to sell your home and upgrade to that 5 bedroom, four bathroom you want, and it really didn't even cost you. There's also a phrase in real estate: when money is moved, money is made.
Okay.
And so when you're adding all of those things, most people, that's all they do anyway, is buy foreclosed homes, add whatever they want to add to it. That's the newest thing, whether it's the granite countertops, the 42-inch cabinets, the hardwood floors, whatever it is that's selling at that time. It's easy to go buy a little foreclosed home, put something into it, put it on the market, and sell it for three times what you bought it, what you paid for it. And so again, when you go out looking for those things, understand you can do that same thing, and it's investing in yourself. Move your own money. Don't let someone else move it for you.
Right. Right.
There was a couple weeks ago, you had a young lady on talking about the 203K loan. That's
Mhm.
another product of FHA. And again, like I say, most people think that FHA is a bad product. It's actually an amazing product. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I financed my own personal house FHA. I had the money to go conventional, but I don't need anybody else holding my own money. I can do something else with it. And I still got the house,
Right. Right.
and I can afford the payment,
It's just the most important thing.
which is the most important thing.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Are you still going through the process? Did we
I'm
get
still
done
moving.
with it?
So
Come on.
once we found your what you can call your home, and this one particular home that we found may be your forever home. We need to make an offer on it. Um, Currently, right now, we have to get creative with how we're writing offers. Most properties are selling for over asking price, and this is stuff that whatever realtor you choose, will probably have this conversation with you during the buyer's consultation. Most of my clients, we have a consultation before we do anything, before we start with the lender, before we go out looking. Again, having that conversation. What are you looking for? What are your must-haves on what that you're looking for, so we can kind of scale back on some of what you may or may not be able to afford at this time. Once you submit an offer, a strong offer, the offer is accepted. We'll move into in this market. We move into submitting the earnest money. Earnest money is nothing more than, the easiest way I can explain it is the buyer's intent. And so I have buyers who say, well, I know so and so only put 500 or $1,000 down. Again, when you submit an offer, it's not all about the purchase price. Putting down a strong earnest money deposit could make a difference in your office, because it shows the buyer's intent to purchase this
Right.
home. There are
Right.
ways there are ways contractually and legally where you can not proceed with the sale of a house based on things that may or may not come back in inspection. There's ways around that. But for the most part, once you submit an offer, let's not just go around throwing offers, seeing what sticks. Submit an offer on a property that you're really interested in. And if you want to move forward on it, put down, some people say 1%, and everything in real estate is negotiable. There is no, this is what you have to do. Some people will say, well, put down 1%. Put down what you're comfortable putting down that will make your offer strong to say, yes, I'm interested in buying this house. Once you
Right.
put your earnest money in, and a lot of this stuff will be happening simultaneously, you're allowed contractually to have a home inspection within 5 business days. There's a shortage of home inspectors. So is it feasible to have a home inspection in 5 days? That's questionable. But if not, you already have a real estate attorney. They'll just draft an extension letter. Most times the sellers will accept it because they understand there's a shortage of inspectors. I have an inspector that I use. It's a preferred inspector, and I'll just tell you, I can't get an inspection in 5 days. I know that going in. And so as soon as I submit an offer and they come back and say it's accepted, I call the attorney and say, hey, submit an extension letter because we just, we can't get an inspector out there in 5 days. There's just a shortage of them. Once the inspection is happening, again, some of these things that happen simultaneously. The lender will order an appraisal. Yes, there are some loan products where you don't need an appraisal. Uh, FHA is not one of those loans. FHA requires you to have an appraisal. It will be ordered by the lender partner, the loan service provider, whoever that may be. The buyer pays for it. That appraisal is to protect the lender. What that appraisal does is go out and say, yes, this property, um, again, appraisal equals value. The appraiser will go out and say, this property is worth what you're offering, or it is not worth what you're offering. And again, based off that's time for more negotiation. Maybe it don't appraise. What do you do at that point? There's a couple options. The seller can say, I'm selling for what I have it listed for. The buyer can say, okay, the bank won't loan me more than the house is worth. And so either I want to sign an appraisal waiver, I'm sorry, an appraisal gap, which says you will come out of pocket with the difference between what the home appraised for and what the seller is selling it for. If you don't have those funds, or if that's not an option for you, you can say, I'm withdrawing my offer. Please return my earnest money deposit check to me, and the contract is null and void. Once you pass the appraisal process, you go into the underwriting process with the lender. And this is where I said early on when I said it can be difficult, it can be challenging. They're going to ask you for so much information that you're going to get tired of giving it. You won't be yourself no more. The lender will
Right.
be you. They're going to ask for bank statements, check stubs. Where did this dollar come from? Where did that 50 cent come from? Who sent you this Zelle?
And you
Unfortunately,
can't do nothing within those last with the last round of the underwriting. Like
once
people don't go buy nothing, don't open no new credit, don't do anything until after you have put the ink on that paper. Nothing.
I have a
Nothing.
horror story. I have a horror story about that, but that's part of the do's and don'ts. There's a whole do's and don'ts list that we do right when the offer go in. And you're absolutely right. Once that offer goes in, don't even run your credit for anything. Not a store credit card, not a car. Don't co-sign for nobody
Nothing.
because that becomes part of your debt to income. The horror story that I have, we had a client who didn't take our advice, and it wasn't because she didn't know. Because again, we have these conversations. I have a whole team, and so when someone comes to me, again, I introduce them to the whole team. You are entitled to use whoever you want. But I have a lender partner, I have an inspector, I have an attorney, and we talk once a week. And there's the client is kept in the loop with all of our communication, so you know what's going on every step of the way. We're all on the same page. We all have the same common goal, and it's to get you in this house. We're not talking about anyone behind their back. This is all business, and we're all professionals. But we have a weekly phone call, and then we follow up with it in writing. So it's not like we're telling you one thing and doing something else. You know exactly every step of the way as we're going through this monopoly board, what's next, what's to come, and what to expect. We had a buyer who decided she was going to go buy her a brand new Escalade before closing, came to closing in it.
Damn, she was supposed to buy it on the after she closed.
Well, what happens is before you close, the lender will do a soft pull on your credit to make sure that you
Yep.
haven't opened any new lines of credit. That new line of credit now becomes part of your debt to income ratio.
And
Remember,
that's a
each
big debt.
each loan program has a DTI, debt to income ratio, and if you exceed that, you no longer qualify for that loan. And so we had to have the hard, honest conversation. Unfortunately, you have to live in that Escalade or you can attempt. And I don't know many dealerships that will let you return it because they are definitely not trying to lose any dollars. But again, it wasn't because she didn't know. She just chose to do something that she wanted to do.
Well,
And unfortunately,
actually,
it
she
cost her
could
home.
have just taken it back and returned it. Like it is a very short window, very short, but it is a window. The thing is we never Like the window is so short. It's always after that that people would want to go
Think
back. But if
about
she
it.
would have turned around and took it right back, the problem is though, is that the reversal of all that paperwork wouldn't have
Paperwork.
been immediate.
Yep.
That's what wouldn't have been immediate. Like, get if it's on your a soft pull credit, getting it back off is not going to be an immediate thing. So that's the problem.
That's not gonna happen
And
in a couple
then
hours.
right, and then you have to make sure you haven't done anything else because now everything has to be ran again. Like it's people have to not be so damn hard headed.
And again, the thing about those car dealers, right? I mean, we've all had to learn the hard way. They don't just send your application to one place. I mean, here you are with 14. How does the bank verify
Yeah.
which one of these? Like they've just seen you just been running your credit. And so again, when you're meeting with your realtor, your lender partners, please pay attention to the do's and don'ts. And if you think about doing anything, have that conversation with your realtor, with the lender partner, with the attorney. They're all there to provide a service to you and to help you. No one is going there is no such thing as a stupid question. We want to make sure you avoid any roadblock that may come your way. So please, if there's anything you having any inkling of doing anything, have the conversation with us and let us direct you and guide you on how to do that before it ultimately costs you in the long run.
Yes, indeed.
And there's just a couple more steps. We talked about going into underwriting, processing. Simultaneously, the appraiser is doing what they're doing. The inspection have happened. The appraisal report comes back and say, home checks out, no repairs are needed. Fine, you go into underwriting. Again, that's another review. That's somebody else from the lending side who's going through your paperwork with a fine tooth comb, making sure you're still working, asking for new check stubs because 2 weeks have probably passed by now. Send us an updated paycheck stub if at all possible. Different career paths offer different things. If at all possible, remain consistent with the hours that you work because that could become challenging as well. Again, trying to find out that debt to income, when you're providing paycheck stubs and they're not consistent, if you're working more, that's always good. But if your hours drop for whatever reason, we have
Hmm.
to make sure that you're able to get back to where you were when you got approved. You can't go from full time to part time. That's going to cause a problem. But if you're getting a bonus or working overtime, that works in your favor. But if the pandemic happened, some people hours got cut. That wasn't good. Again, that debt to income, we have to use what you can provide at the time. And so as these
Right.
underwriters and processors are going through that, they're going to want updated pay stubs. Well, Janelle was making $25 an hour three, you know, 3 weeks ago. Unfortunately, now she's only making $17 an hour. We have to readjust that. And unfortunately, you
Yeah.
may or may not qualify at that point, depending on what program you're going with and what their debt to income ratio allowable is. Um, Once you go through the underwriting process, again, simultaneously, you want to make sure that you're going to need homeowners insurance when you purchase a home. So you want to make sure you have that. Homeowners insurance when you close is paid for a year through closing. That's all tied into some of those fees that you pay. And so once all of that paperwork is compiled and approved, you get what's called a clear to close. Clear to close doesn't give you the right to go purchase a vehicle, open a new Macy's credit card, go to the Gucci store, none of that. That just means your loan has been approved at this point. You're clear to close. Go ahead and schedule it. And the attorneys will work with the title companies. They all have relationships with title companies. They will schedule those closings. Clear to close, schedule closing. Day or two before the closing, you want to do what's called your final walkthrough. During that final walkthrough, that's another chance. That's not a chance to go back and renegotiate, but you want to make sure everything that was in your contract is still in that house and the house is still standing. If those stainless steel appliances were there when you viewed it and it's in the contract that they're staying, you haven't agreed that the seller is allowed to take them. They're expected to be there, not a refrigerator. No, here's what was expected to be there.
Right.
That's why it's very important to go days before. I know some people will go the day of. That's risky because if something happened, what do you do? Try to get an addendum or something to say we will repair it
Right.
or we
Right.
will we will we will replace it. Well, what if they don't? And so
Right.
again, just give yourself some time. Again, easing the fear, right? And that's a conversation that you have early on. You'll have a timeline of how things are happening. And so everyone will know when the clear to close happened, when this happened, when that happened, when the closing is scheduled. And so we can kind of play around with, okay, we're going to go a day, 2 days. If the house is vacant, maybe you can go the day before, day of. The chances of something being removed then, but it could be. And not saying that the seller did it. There are some neighborhoods where citizens of the neighborhood go in and help themselves to things. But
Yeah.
however, it's expected legally and contractually that how you saw the house is how it's delivered to you at closing. Please remember, the seller owns the house up to the date of closing. So if you close today, technically the seller still owns that house today. Nothing is by the hour. Everything is by the calendar day. So when you're doing your contract and the tax prorations and all of that, the seller owns the house through day of closing. So, for example, the closing I had today, she technically begins ownership tomorrow because she's gotten tax credit and everything for today. And so when you do your final walkthrough, again, that's the time to look at, make sure everything is in order. Now, I mean, if we can't go back and renegotiate and say this wall is gray, I want it pink. That's not how that works. But once you do your final walkthrough, and you and your agent, your realtor confirm everything is okay. It's not a report, anything you fill out. Just call the attorney and say, hey, we completed the final walkthrough. Everything is fine. We're good to go. See you at closing tomorrow. Next day, you go to the closing for whatever title company was chosen. The sellers will have documents to sign. The buyers will have documents to sign. You'll get your keys. Everybody take their pictures. You are now a new homeowner. You've looked through that. You got depressed because you saw how much money you got to pay every month for the next 30 years, and with interest, how much it's going to cost you, which is probably 4 times what you bought the house for. But it's an investment in yourself. Just look at it that way. Um, the final thing to remember is after closing, and most people forget this, call the utility companies and make sure you activate your utilities, because tomorrow you own that house, not the previous sellers, and I'm sure they're not going to pay your bill for you. They have already called the utility companies and said,
Okay.
on April
It's
25th,
gonna be cut
I'm
off on
selling
the
this
day of
house.
closing.
And on April 26th, when you walk in there and hit the light switch, ain't nothing gonna happen. There's programs and stuff, especially now, knock or whoever that will process all of that stuff, 360, that will process that stuff for you. But again, um, and that's again, as an agent, that's one of my due diligence. We'll have the conversation. I have a call tonight with a young lady who closed on the house today. Okay, we've made it through the home buying process. Again, here's what's next. Make sure the utilities. And again, we did use one of those services, but mistakes happen. Clerical mistakes happen. The last thing we will want is for our buyer to walk into a house tomorrow, hit the light switch, and nothing happens. That's just not a good look on anyone. And so there's nothing wrong with having a 5-minute conversation later on saying, hey, okay, we've closed. Here are the next steps. Let me know if you need anything else. And that's the
Oh,
process of home ownership. I hope this have been very informative. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach me. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, and my personal website. I can share that with you as well. My personal
and you
website.
can ask in the comments here because he'll be replying to comments here too. So
Oh,
if
absolutely.
you're lazy and don't want to go look for him, you can definitely ask in here, and we will respond to the comments in here as well.
And
That
whenever
was
they see
good.
when they see the Monopoly board, my contact information is on there as well.
There you go. So you guys have his contact information. There's the phone number. There is his email address, the company name, all that good stuff. So yeah, it's been up pretty much. If they don't catch it live, then they can always play it back anyway. So it's
Oh,
good that
absolutely.
you do have it up there. So people can just screenshot it or write it down, however they want to do it. And as well, I'll have his information in the comments. Um, wow, wow. How did you know you would be good at selling houses or property?
Um, I figured I knew I'll be good, and so even when I was in the commercial world, we talked about friends and family, right? And I have to give credit where credit is due. The very first residential home I sold was to my cousin Cahelia. She's my cousin, but we grew up as almost like brother and sister. And so when she called me, she said, "Hey, I want to buy a house, and I trust you." I was working at the residential brokerage that time, and my managing broker, through all the years I was there, I worked with him 14 years, and he kept pushing me, saying, "Commercial isn't your niche. You should really be on the residential side." And I'm like, "Well, all we do here is commercial. How am I going to do residential?" Um, and it's good to work with a managing broker like that. A managing broker is like the owner of the company, who will always push you to do better. You know, that managing broker is very successful. He's to the point, even on the commercial side, where he don't deal with storefronts anymore. He buy land and build malls on them. And so he's very successful. But for him to continue to push me and say, "Hey, you should really be on the residential side." And it got to the point where he pushed me one time too many, and I went home and had a conversation with my wife saying, "You know what? He told me I need to do this. People keep calling me um, when they want to do residential, knowing I work for a commercial brokerage. And because they have the trust in me, I think I need to make the leap and go over to the residential side." And like most wives, she said, "Well, I knew that. I was just waiting on you to be ready because this is what you have to do." And she said, "I have your back 100%." And it's been all gas, no brakes since. Let me tell you. Um, I have a good supportive team. I could not do this on my own. My wife, my children have been very supportive of me doing this endeavor. And I look forward to continually growing and continually helping people build generational wealth, one closing at a time. I think you're muted.
Oh, sorry. So I haven't mentioned, as I usually don't do in the beginning of these interviews, is that we are family. John is my cousin.
I did a good
And
job not
so,
disclosing it.
you know what I'm saying? We did real good because we ain't say cuz or nothing because we cuz to each other to death,
I
you know?
almost slipped a
That's
few
how we
times.
do. Right, right. So, you guys, I want to honor him as a boss, as the boss that he is. And I don't talk about family stuff when I'm honoring my bosses. But since we're coming around to our close, we're going to talk about, I just want to display that, yes, this is my cousin. So we've known each other all our lives. We are within the same age range. And it's a lot of us, and we are all stacked up in age range. So to see you go from when we were in our late teens, early 20s to where you are now. And I want to ask you a question. What is the difference between John at 23 and John right now? I ain't gonna say our age, so I'm gonna just say and John right now. What's the difference?
Maturity level. Um, I said it early on. Life happens, right? Um,
Right?
as time go on, maturity happens. Um, I alluded to that earlier. My wife, my children, who have been very supportive of me. Um, I have to do something to show them there are other things to do in life other than the streets. Uh, you can be successful in other ways, and this just has been a blessing to me. It's been a blessing to them, and even my son. He has his own real estate stuff that he's doing. At 24 years old, he's an investor.
Okay. Okay. That is dope. That is dope. That's good. Well, I'm definitely proud of you because, we weren't the tamedest young people. We have definitely seen our days of being out there in them streets and having a good time, us then and us now is, and we still turn up just in a totally different way. We get together and we have our family thing, but now we have grown children and we're grandparents. Ugh. So
Speak for
we have
yourself.
to definitely
Speak for yourself. I don't have children.
anyway,
I tell them all
but
the time,
now
y'all my sisters and brothers. Y'all ain't my kids.
I'm trying to tell you, I try to get by with that, but they be like, "Ma." I'm like, "Damn." They don't want to let us live our best life. But it's good to see your progress. It's good to see your growth. It's good to see that life happened and made you better and not worse, okay? Because
Absolutely.
as you said that life happens, it does happen. It happens for everybody. And some people it makes them worse and some people it makes them better. And there's really no in between. It's either going to make you stronger or weaker. And that's really what it is. Really survival of the fittest. And that is damn sure a true statement. So I'm glad to see that you went this way, cause I'm so
I'm
proud
glad
of
you
you.
said that
Like,
because part of so I moved up through the ranks at Chicago Public Schools all the way to, and I don't even know if you know, I started out with Chicago Public Schools as a part-time security guard. I'm a hustler by
okay,
nature, and so like I said, I've always had multiple jobs. Um,
right.
I started out as a part-time security guard, and in a matter of 12 years, worked myself up all the way to an assistant principal. Um, and so every facet of the Chicago Public Schools I've worked in, and from security supervisor, technology coordinator, business manager, dean of students. And so I used to always tell the young men, um, you don't have to be a product of your environment. Don't think I've always sat behind this desk. And so it's easy for me to have, even in real estate, the hard conversations, because even sitting behind that desk at the school, we had to have some tough, hard conversations. And I've been fortunate, I've been blessed that I've been able to be a big brother to some. I've been able to be an uncle to some. I've even been able to be a father to some. Um, but they don't have to become a product of their environment. And we have to look at our schools today, and we're all entitled to our personal opinions, right? Our kids go through enough hell to get to school that when they get there, they should know that it's at least one person there that really care about if they get an education.
Man,
Because
come
if
on.
they don't get an education, the stuff that we see going on downtown and on the news, it's only going to get worse. I see it every day working in law enforcement. And when they come through the jail or are on their way to jail, when I ask them, if you could change anything in your life, what would you do differently? And the number one answer you're going to get is finish school. And it's real.
Yeah, I know it is. It's real, real. It's real, real. Um,
I mean, there's a
I
lot of layers to that, in just in our culture. Like, there's some hard conversations that need to be had, whether it's about parenting, education. Not that I'm the greatest, but I've had those who poured into me, and I made a post a couple weeks
definitely
ago, sent out a
parenting.
couple of text messages. Um, one of the text messages I got last week, um, it did something to me, right? Because we all have people in our lives who we want to make proud. Um, and one of the people who called me, and not that I didn't know it, but it's something to hear your mom call you and say, I'm proud of you. I got a text message from my uncle Felix. Talk about life changing, right? And
Okay.
again, some of the same thing. And he was saying, life could have took a whole different path. It's not like the opportunity wasn't there, but we have to be the ones to make the decision to say, am I going to go left and accept what comes with it? Or am I going to go right and accept what comes with it?
Come
Um,
on.
but just be man or woman enough to accept whichever road you take, what comes along with that.
Yep. 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 Definitely have to accept what comes along with that. That's man. I did not know that you were an assistant principal at the schools. You know, look, we could have a whole show alone. Is that mine? So we could have a whole show alone just about the Chicago school system. Not just the Chicago school system, just what goes on in school. And like you said, and even just the parenting, because people just, if you've never worked inside the schools, people cannot conceptualize what goes on in the schools, what teachers and staff members are dealing with in the schools. And I just didn't understand it until I started doing the mentoring programs at the school and then substitute teaching. And it only took 1 year of substitute teaching for me to really see, like, when you talk about what these kids have to go through to get to school, like what these kids have to go through and how they get to school, the emotional state they are in once they get there, what they have to deal with from the time they leave school and get back to school, it is amazing. You
You know,
know, like,
most of these communities,
and
and I
then
know
the suicide rate with these young people. When you've been inside of the school system and you hear about a young person committing suicide, I don't think that one who deals with kids all the time wouldn't understand. You know what I'm saying? It's like at to one extent, we don't understand why a kid would do that. But if you've heard what some of these kids go through and have to deal with, you would understand, because as an adult, we can't deal with some of the shit they deal with.
I used to tell our teachers, if you knew that student besides their ID number, you would understand. You're not teaching math today,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's real.
And
You
you
know, we
have to
talk
be
about the
able to
attendance.
hone into when it's time. Like if a kid can't conceptualize math today because of everything else, these other factors, leave them alone and let them. I don't mean allow them to be a disturbance to the room. But one thing I've learned about the kids, that especially the kids that live in the impoverished areas or whatever you want to call them, is that when they know you see them and they know that you are accepting them for even the flaws they have, and you just really talk to them, like, you can get so much further with them if you just let them know, like, look, I know you done had a fucked up day today. You might not want to say that, but I probably did.
Sometimes you have to
But
say that.
yeah, but, like, I might have, because you know that some of these kids, that is the only language they hear at home. And sometimes you gotta
That's
let
all they
them know,
understand.
like, I know it was rough. I know that you ain't really here today, and it's okay. You ain't got to be here. Just sit right here and do whatever you got to do. Put your earbuds in. Some teachers can't get outside of rules enough to be able to understand that either this kid could be a problem or you could find a solution to the whole situation for right now. You know what I'm saying? If he got to put them earbuds in and let him just do him right now, it's either that or you don't know what's gonna pop off in this classroom. Because when the other kids push his buttons, that's another thing. The kids feel those energies too, and they know when kids are off, and they love to push them buttons. It's it's
Stu-
it's, it's a bunch of
the student,
cycles.
the students don't care how much you know until they know how much you care about them.
Yeah,
Once they know
yeah,
you genuinely care about them, beyond just, oh, today is, student ID, what do you hear? But when you get to know them and start listening to the hell they go through to get to school, and that's a whole nother topic about the school attendance, and like you said, until you worked in the school and understand the business aspect behind it, it's real. It's real.
it's real. It is. And you understand why we see a lot of the things that we see. There are so many parents out here that have tapped all the out when it comes to being a parent. Like, people really think that other people are good parents like them. And that's what really gets me, like, but I didn't know the magnitude of parents not being parents until I got into the school system. Because when I tell you, like, they don't give off. It's so many parents that really, I don't even know what, I don't, it's hard to even explain, but like, you're gonna see maybe three parents out of six classes that'll come to parent teacher conference, like the
And
way
you're
they
lucky if you
sitting
get
there.
three.
You lucky if you get three. And guess what? One of the three might be the one that want to come up to tell you, bitch, you better not say this about my kid no more and all this. Like, it is, they be, why the F you gave my son an F. Have you ever seen them do homework? Like, do you even know what homework is? No. but
Nope.
you wonder why he got an F. It's crazy. So, man, shout out to you for being able to juggle all of these boss hats because that's a lot, and to have a wife to take care of. Okay, because that's a wife and kids and everybody else, nieces, nephews. That's a lot of hats to wear. And shout out to you for being able to do that as a man, as a father, as an uncle, as a brother. You wear many hats as a man. You have turned into, especially after your grandfather passed, right? At my uncle, so his grandfather and my grandmother were siblings. Um, Everything shifted within the family on that side, right? So then you had another tier of men who became the matriarchs. And unfortunately, we have been losing them, you
Yep.
know. And so now your generation are stepping into the matriarch positions. When it comes to mental health, what do you do to keep your mental health at bay? Because I've decided that I want to make sure that I talk to all of the men that come on my show about this before we get off, because I think it's important that other men might hear from someone else. Like, what do you do to stay balanced, to not go off the edge? Um, and especially knowing all that you know from work side and street side, what do you do to stay balanced mentally?
I have to be totally honest, right? Um, this is one of the tough conversations it is for me to have because my wife told me it came from working in law enforcement where you're told you have to be strong. You don't have to. You're not allowed to show your emotions, or you're going to be weak. You're going to seem weak. Um,
Yes.
I use the term friend very loosely. I don't have a lot of friends. Let me just put this out here in the universe. I don't have a lot of friends. I have enough cousins that I don't need no damn friends. Okay.
Right.
Um, I do have a core group of other men that when life get real, I can have a real conversation about how I'm feeling, the emotions that I'm having, and not be judged. Um, one of them happens to be my pastor, uh, and we can have a pastor relationship, or we can have a man relation, a man talk. And that's just the type of relationship that we have. And you know, there's a couple other, and there's a core group that I can go to. And you talk about mental health. Um, I'm comfortable in the skin that I'm in, right? Um,
Mhm.
Not many people know this. Mental health is real. Um,
Yeah.
I've had my challenges and I've had my thoughts about suicide because
Mm.
once you've had enough, you don't know you had enough until you had enough and you're to that point.
Right.
And so now for me, we have the conversation. I had a whole plan, and I could have executed that plan in a heartbeat. And the day I was going to execute that plan, I'm just going to be completely honest with you. My pastor was the one who called me and said something ain't right
Mm.
because I had decided that day in the police car the location I was going to, and that was it. He called me and said something ain't right. I need
Come
to see
on.
you. And he said because we have that relationship, and I had the conversation with him. He
He
said I
felt
already know it, and he said you have too much to live for. Part of it was some of the death that happened, and you know, as you said, my grandfather, you know, my grandmother, that took a huge hit on a lot of us. And you know, some people in the family
right.
may or may not talk about it, but I am an advocate for mental health now. Even with the school, I still work there part time, helping them with some of their behavioral health stuff. um, because some of the positions that I've held and now some of the training that I've had, I took it upon myself to become a crisis intervention training officer because we need more people on the street who really care, first of all, and then understand everybody ain't crazy. Some people just need a little bit of support and help, and they need the resources. We It's going to take us to take back our neighborhoods and not wait on these damn politicians to do nothing because all they see is dollar signs. They will close every hospital that we have and tell you go to Waukegan and get your medication on damn well you can't go there and get it. So what are we going to do about that? They'll put you in these hospitals and say you can stay here for 3 days and then we're going to put you out. What happens after those 3 days when you give me a
Right.
prescription and I can't afford the medication? Is this just a revolving door, or what are we going to do about this?
Right.
That's a
Right.
whole nother. You see, I done revved up. Don't get me started on that one. But that's a whole nother conversation, though. And if there's someone who's watching this live, and I don't say it, and it sounds cliche, if you're having those thoughts, we can have a real conversation to figure out how to get you some help and some support. Your
Come
life
on.
matters to somebody. You may not know who that person is, but your life matters. And it don't have to end the way you think it's going to have to end. We can overcome any trial, any tribulation, any troubles that we're going through. There's enough resources amongst us where we can get you some help and get you back on the right track to live a successful life.
Yes. Yes. Man, that's good. We gotta start having these conversations, because I really would love to have you back for a 2.0 because there is so much more that we can talk about, and I definitely want to dive into it because there's things I didn't even get to ask you, but just for time purposes, um, I don't really want to go too much further because we only have so much windows on here to keep people's
Definitely, let's
attention,
do it again.
but definitely a 2.0. And there may even be, there's a couple other brothers. I wouldn't mind just having you guys on and just talking about, this kind of thing because I do believe that men should have a safe space where other men, even if it's another man,
Hmm.
a friend where you can go and be vulnerable. And also I want women to understand that it is okay for a man to have that space and not invite you in that space, even if he's married to you, whether you're his woman or whatever you are. Just like, because no woman, any woman that tells a man that she tells him everything she tells her girlfriends or her friends, she's a damn lie. So there's always going to be a safe place for women amongst women. We always have that amongst ourselves, but yet we want to purge ourselves into the men's safe space. And you got to tell me, like, I think the more that they hear these conversations, the more women can understand you all, understand men, and understand that sometimes you watching the game, you can figure your whole life out while watching the game, and she needs to just let you do that. You know what I'm saying? And not even understand how that happens or how that works because it's just how it works for you guys. Whereas we could do something else, go to the beauty salon and think about we have to have these safe places and we have to have these conversations because mental health is very important. And in our community, it's so taboo, and I think we need to find a space to stop just telling men you just have to be strong. You just have to be strong all the time. Why the hell would you have to be strong all the time? And still, we need to understand that being vulnerable is being strong.
It's been strong.
That's being strong. You having the strength to go to your friend, your cousins, your brothers, whoever, your son, shit. And at this point, our kids are grown. So there are even conversations we can have with our kids,
Hmm.
that could be a safe place.
Yeah,
So yeah, I just wanted to ask you that. You have any other gems you want to drop on us before we shut this session
I
down?
do. I do, and I'm gonna
Go
try to
ahead.
make it. I'm gonna try to make it through this without causing somebody to shed some tears.
Oh Lord.
I, I really want to thank you, not only for this platform, but doing what you've been destined to do. I don't even know if you remember. It was 3 short years ago. Your brother had called us and said, "We got to do something to get together because my sister is just not feeling it."
Oh yeah, you
And
just
you
gonna
didn't
hate
even
me
have
now.
enough strength to get up and walk, but you pushed through and came on over to his house. And Janeah, let me tell you, this platform It started out on Facebook, and I know the issues that you were having, and you tried to go to YouTube, and I'm gonna go over to Twitter, and I'm gonna live stream here. But look at you now. Um, Again, this is a testament. This is your platform that God has a purpose for your life to touch others. And I'm gonna just leave it as simple as I'm not gonna get too much into the Bible, but it is true that ears have not heard and eyes have not seen the good things that are in store for you. So please continue to keep doing what you're doing and bringing light and allowing others to educate the people of your audience. Thank you.
Thank you, cuz. Every time I think about that time, I get emotional on many levels and like happy tears though, because I never thought I would be able to walk right again. I seriously thought that that was going to be like a permanent situation, and I know some people know about it, some people don't, because I never was one to post when I was in the hospital or even post me on those walkers or canes and things like that. And that was an 8-month span of me having nerve damage in my tailbone and my spine, and it really did affect me strength wise and walking wise. And I it was a feeling. I've been dealing with these conditions since 2006, but that was a feeling that I had never felt before in my life, and I really thought it was going to be permanent. But it also just taught me, like, man, you just gotta get up and go and fight through whatever it is, because I kept moving. And then one day it just freaking went away, which is the craziest thing ever. We still don't know why. I don't care. It just went away. God answered my prayers, and
Well, you
I
just said one.
think cause God answered my, and you know what, cuz what you just brought up is one of the things that fuels the hell out of me, because my motto now, like with myself, is every day that you can walk, you're gonna walk. You're not gonna lay in. Only time I lay in the bed is when I'm having a flare up and I need to lay in the bed, because if I don't, whatever, I'll get too sick. But other than that, my motto is, if you could walk, you're gonna walk. Like, you gotta walk, because I got up when that happened one morning, and I got up to stand up and fell into the wall and couldn't walk. And so until that's happened to you, most people take for granted
Granted,
being able
absolutely.
to walk. Most people take that for granted. Like, that 8-month span, my life was limited extremely. I couldn't go anywhere where I had to walk. It was tough. And I didn't tell any of you. None of you knew about it. So I was fighting that on my own. I was ashamed of even that. It entailed a lot. Okay. This stuff was in my tailbone, which mean at one point I couldn't even control my bladder. So this is something that was like devastating. But
But that just goes to show you, not the family bond is still there, no matter how far apart we are. Um, you
because
know,
y'all
most of the
all showed up.
most of the group chat, y'all might put something that we want to hang out, and I'm at work. But when I saw that text, and me and JR was talking, I said, I'm calling off. I'm there. He said, well, FaceTime me when you're there. He was in Vegas at the time. But we all understood that at that point, and I don't care, every family has their moments where life happens and things happen in the family, right? But when it's time to be there for one another, our family, no matter where you are, what's going on, we are there for each other. And I just want to continue to encourage you and let you know we support you, and we're going to continue to encourage you. And you've blown this far. This ain't it. This ain't it. You ain't even blew the roof off the building yet. The sky's the limit, but you ain't even blew the roof off the building yet.
Let's go. I'm telling you, I ain't even got started yet. Like J Lo said, let me tell you guys something. I'm just getting started, okay? I'm just getting started. I'm just getting my little feet wet. Just getting my feet wet. I thank you. I thank you. I thank you. I knew you was gonna make me cry, doggone it. I knew you was gonna make me cry. But these are good tears, because these are
Absolutely.
overcoming tears. Like, Y'all, I couldn't do this. I could do none of this. So just to be able to move, I thank God. I thank the Most High. I thank Him so much. I'm gonna talk to anybody I could talk to everybody I could talk to, and I'm gonna keep giving flowers because God gave me my flowers and said, "Hey, snap back in the game." So I feel like He telling me, He showed me where I could be.
Hmm.
Right. He showed me
Absolutely.
where I could be. He like can't nobody, it wasn't a dream. It was reality. Okay. He showed me where I could be. And then he just snapped me back and said, "What you gonna do?"
What you gonna do
And for
with
a
it?
long time, you like you said, that was 3 years ago. So still after that, I was like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? I was always so scared of that happening again that I didn't do stuff. Like because I was scared that like I might be somewhere and that happened. And then I just can't walk. But I had to let that go. And hey, he said go, I'm going. Y'all nonstop. I'm gonna
Come on,
keep this train rolling.
keep it
I
rolling.
appreciate your support. You've been supporting from day one. I appreciate that. You are boss number 38. So I
Thank you.
appreciate this. That's a
I
lot of
appreciate you.
conversations.
We definitely let's connect again, and I would love to set up a panel or something with some other men, um, and
I'm
let's
gonna
compare
I'm
those
gonna
out.
set it up. I have already have the men in mind. I'm gonna set it up and I'm gonna like back channel all of you guys and I'm gonna let you guys run the dialogue and I'm just gonna put it together and then I'm gonna let you guys talk because you guys come from totally different fields, totally different regions and everything. And I think that that's important too, to see how someone from the West Coast versus someone down south versus someone in the Midwest, how everybody thinks. And it's even somebody I'm trying to tap into that's overseas. So we can just see how our men think bi-coastal. How
Globally.
do they and how are they coping?
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, again,
Uh,
I thank you so much for the opportunity, and I look forward to the next adventure.
all right, cuz. So just hang on. I'm going to close out and thank you again for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, you guys. I definitely was not planning on shedding any tears, but it's all good because, as I said, these are tears of joy. You guys make sure you tap back in next Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And I'm going to let you guys know when we do a 2.0 of this one.